All right, looks like nobody on Zoom. Alrighty. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming in the audience, and Jamie, thank you for coming. We may see you up here or not, who knows? Don't want to be premature. Okay, Rachel, would you like to do roll call?
Yes. Richard Swarthout,
Here.
Sarah Stroud.
Yes.
Anna Mulder.
Here.
Scott Reese.
Here.
Alex Blackson. Here. We're missing Sarah. Ups. We'll put Sophia down. Perfect.
All right, did everybody look at the minutes? Any corrections, comments?
Allison gave me corrections, so on the approval of the meeting minutes, I have 2 people absent from the meeting, but then I have approval at 7, which is impossible because there are only
Yes.
5 of us here. So I will correct that.
Somebody is reading the minutes. Yay.
Right. I was like,
I did my homework. Yeah, good. And before we go any further, I would like to thank Allison for being on the board. I feel kind of sad that, I thought we had a really good cohesive board, and I'm sure the next one will be great too, but if you ever in the future you want to
I will.
do it again.
Slow down, I will.
Yep.
I've enjoyed it.
Good.
And I told Rachel, when you have the signups for the sledding and stuff, if I'm available, I will come and help.
Great.
Some hot
And
cocoa.
there's a dozen Tam's Mams cookies, so if you don't eat them here, you have to take them home, okay?
I'm sorry you're leaving, Allison. I know you're involved with Ski Crew now, and I know from past experience how much time that takes.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah. So thanks for being here all these months,
Yeah.
years.
You'll probably miss us.
I'm sure I'll see you at Pearson's.
She'll probably still come to the board meetings.
Yes, it's on my calendar. Okay.
All right, let's see, Rachel, on board communications. Alrighty. And I would just like to say that I've heard from so many people that the skate park is just awesome. And everybody is enjoying it already, and people come for what they think just to see it, and then they end up staying overnight, and it's gonna be awesome. Okay.
In the skate park, staying overnight in the skate park.
Oh, well, that would be an idea. No, Best Western, Rachel had a story where somebody came, yeah.
What do you think?
All right, let's see, public comments other than something on the agenda. Alrighty. Let's see, discussion items. Gary, take it away.
Great. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be with you. And as you may know, my name is Gary Stewart, and I live at 101 Easy Street at the corner of Easy Street and Pine Street. And I'm sort of I'm the convener, I would call it, of the Pine Street Shea Park Neighbors Group, which is not a formal legal entity, but it's a coalition of neighbors that's been working together for many years to try to make what we call Shea Park as good as we can make it. So if I can just sort of be a free range speaker here.
Do you want a laser pointer? We've got
So,
like-
yeah, so we, of course, here is Hoyt Street to Pine Street. Our house is here at Easy Street. And then this area here is the area that we refer to as Shea Park. And I don't know if that's an official designation, but we refer to this whole area as Shea Park. You may recall this area here is a mowed lawn with a picnic table. And there's actually a plaque, a sign, I think it's a city sign, that says Shea Park View Area. And of course, the idea there is that people can come and have a picnic lunch or be there, stop there in their bike and have a view of the bay and the lake. And when the trees are appropriately trimmed, the view is really quite stunning and quite nice. And of course, this issue is great. I think it's a happy one because sometimes in our civic affairs, we have private interests and public interests not combining toward the same end. I think here we have a situation where the public interest and the private interest is together. And I think the task before us, the city, is to make sure we're doing things that are conducive of that. So the neighbors who are involved are, of course, us here. This neighbor is not involved. The view's not so good. They're supportive, but they're not involved. These neighbors here, these households are, and these neighbors here and these neighbors here. So these neighbors where their properties directly adjoin with the boundary of the parkland are the neighbors who are involved. So what I'm gonna do now actually is refer to some notes so that I get my timeline and my dates right. And when Rachel asked me to come, she thought it would be helpful, excuse me, if I could give a little history of what the neighbors have been doing and the city's been doing over the last few years. And so I will try to do that. My wife Sue and I built our house and moved into it in 2012. So prior to 2012, I was not physically here. And I have some understanding of what took place. Maybe some of you do too, who were here before I was, but my hands-on experience begins about 2012. If we go back to, the policy objectives, I think for the city, as stated in the vegetation management plan and by city officials, and I think the property owners all share these goals, the policy objectives are, number one, protect the tree canopy in the park. No one wants to hurt the trees. No one wants to reduce the canopy. It's important to enhance that, let it be as strong as it can be. Also to protect against erosion. Obviously, the way that you keep land from sliding away is by having a good root structure in the soil to keep it intact and in place. And so everyone wants to do that. 3, preserve native species of plants and trees while removing invasive species of plants and trees. And which is kind of an overarching goal, and the city arborist, of course, is involved, Ben Veeling, and very insistent on that as well. And then, of course, enhance the view, both for private residences who are interested in having the view, and also for the public as they use the park up there by the picnic tables. So those are the policy objectives that I think we've all talked about supporting. So the history is around 2008, 2010. So going back before my time in Harbor Springs, the neighbors have worked with the city to employ trimming in the area. And the interest in doing that, of course, was in enhancing the view. And that had been going on. The philosophy, financial philosophy has been, as articulated by the city manager some years ago, is that the view was that only this small group of residents benefit from the trimming. Like if you live where Dick lives, for instance, or somewhere else in the city, you don't see the view from your house. And so, you know, there's a legitimate question you can tee up as to where is the benefit. Now, that may be a little conservative, that may be a little narrow, because if you're talking about the view from the houses, that's certainly true. If you talk about the view from the park, then maybe the interest is broader than simply those homes. But the way that the financial philosophy has been described to me is that, okay, you folks on Pine Street are the ones who benefit, you guys pay for it. So that's been and that continues to this day. Pardon me. And so every year we do pass the hat and come up with funds then to do the trimming. So that was going forward. I'm going back to about 2008 or so. And then some of you may know more about this than I do, but there was there was an aggressive trimming done in that area going back around 2010 or a little bit earlier. And some of the neighbors actually on the bluff thought that the trimming was too aggressive. And, you know, it was described as clear cut. I don't know if it was a clear cut, but it was a very aggressive trimming. And it met with negative reactions from some neighbors. So in reaction to that, the city promulgated, enacted a vegetation management plan, which exists today. And the reason I'm saying it was promulgated in 2010 is I have a hard copy of it here, and it has a 2010 date on it. So I'm assuming about 2010 is when the vegetation management plan was put in place. And the vegetation management plan talked about working with the city arborist and coming up with a plan that protects against soil erosion, that protects in terms of the plant cover that you need. But also the view is mentioned in terms of one of the objectives in the plan. So the plan came out in 2010. And then when I moved in to town, there hadn't been a trimming in a while. And there was revived interest in trimming. So in 2012, the neighbors got together again and we met with the city arborist. And we came up then with an approved plan for trimming and started to do trimming once every year. And then from 2012 to 2017, everything worked great. I mean, it was not broken until about 2017. And what we would do is the neighbors would meet every year with the city arborist, and we'd meet right up here in this area here. And we would look around and talk about the trees that should be trimmed. And at that time, the policy of the city was that you could trim up to 25% of the trees in the area in question. So there was a pace that was regulated into the program. So you couldn't trim any more than 25% in any one year, which is actually quite a lot of trees. And so Timberwolf Tree Care did that work for us and began trimming, and it went great. And as you can see, this is city property here, city-owned property, but there's also some areas of the park that are privately owned, especially along here, the Thompson residence here. And it really worked well. Every year we would talk about, well, we'd like a little more here, a little more there. And then I don't know if you recall Mr. Thompson, Buddy Thompson, great fellow who lived here. And we said, you know, Buddy, we would like to trim some of the trees that are on your property. Could we do that? And he said, yeah, sure, come on over. And so Ben Vealing and I would meet with Mr. Thompson here, and we'd walk around and say, can we take this one? Shake it. Yeah, you can take that one. Can we take this one? No, don't take that one. And so we would go tree by tree, and we had a great partnership then of keeping the whole parkland going pretty well. So then things went along. And then the city of Harbor Springs issued a notice which caused some problems. I think around that time, there were some politics on other bluff properties in the city that became difficult. I'm not an expert on them, but I think that there were some disputes among property owners. One of the things, and that political trouble, I think, unfortunately affected our situation here. One of the things that's different about this is that there's nobody at the bottom of the hill. So where you have bluff areas in other parts of the city, where you have people at the top of the hill disagreeing with people at the bottom of the hill, that's a natural tension. And again, I'm not an expert on that, but that my understanding is that occurs. Here, there are no disagreements because there's nobody at the bottom of the hill, which is why for so many years we had a real nice, harmonious conversation to get things done. So then, however, the city, I think, got a little more conservative, and they issued this communication, which I call it clumsy, and I'll pass this around. When you well, it went in the paper and it was a notice that went to all the neighbors. And it had this whole area outlined, and when you read it, you got the feeling that they were gonna cut all the trees down in this whole area. Well, that's not what was being contemplated, but that's how people interpret it. So here's the communication. I'll just walk by. You can see the outline
Oh,
there.
yeah, they use it as an example.
Yeah, so see, they were trying to say, so this is the air, see the black line? Yeah, so this is the area we're gonna cut. That's the black line in their memo. Yeah.
And this was issued by
Yeah.
Timberwolf, Gary.
I have the wrong one. No, it's issued by the city of Harbor Springs.
Oh, so there was an attachment.
Richards.
Yes, Tom Richards was the city manager. So it's a communication from the city with a Timberwolf attachment. And the attachment, and there's the, and that. Yeah, and so so some neighbors saw that and said, oh my goodness, they're gonna cut down all the trees in that area, that's bad. And these neighbors here and here, mostly this neighbor here, actually, we had lost Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson is no longer available at that point. Well, actually, he was, I take that back. He was available for a while. He was confused by the communication as well. Shortly after that, we did lose Mr. Thompson. But anyway, you had these neighbors objecting and saying, why are you gonna cut all the trees down? We don't want you to do that. The concern here is that too much trimming would violate privacy interests of this house here. That's their point of view there. So anyway, we had a big meeting. And by then they also had cut the FEMA drain into this area, right? Which is a pretty defined physical space through the property. And so we came to an agreement where we said, okay, on the west of the, or I'm sorry, in the east of the FEMA drain, we will trim as we have been. To the west of the FEMA drain, we won't touch that. And because the city ordinance and the policy is that, well, this, we should talk about what the policy is. I think it's unclear. So at what point can a neighbor stop the whole program, right? That's not really defined. But anyway, to keep the peace, what we did is we made an agreement where to this side of the FEMA drain, we could trim as usual. To this side of the FEMA drain, we would not trim anymore. And that's the way it's gone then for the last, what, 5 years or so. So I guess as we come up to today, where we are is that every year we do meet with the city arborist, and we look over the plan, and he approves a trimming plan based on what the rule says. And then we hire Timberwolf to do the work. And trimming takes place on that side of the FEMA drain, and I think it's looking pretty good. In the last couple of years, they made the trimming more conservative. So now you can't take 25% of the trees in an area. You can only take 10% per year, which slows the pace. It's still okay. So I think that when you look at the east side of the FEMA drain now, it looks pretty good. I think that every year there's a little bit of gain in terms of the view, and it's going well. I think the west side of the FEMA drain is beginning to, well, it's beginning to be, the view is starting to be quite obstructed. And so I think Rachel, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think some of the people have talked to you have questioned whether the view land at the park is being properly served by the obstruction in that west side of the park as the stuff grows up. Is that one of the questions that's come to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think where we are now then is to think about what is the proper way to serve the interests of the public park to make the view as good as we can make it. And which also coincides with the neighbors along Pine Street. Well, also, you know, properly respecting and involving the neighbors that are on that lower edge. That's the challenge.
Yeah, and to clarify, the comments I've gotten, which there have been more than a few since I started here, are that park used to be heavily viewed for 4th of July fireworks. And now it doesn't have quite the pull because you can't see as well from that view. So when I do get comments, most of them are aligned with that. They say we used to go up there every year for 4th of July fireworks. Now we don't because we can't see through there. And it's not always people that live in that neighborhood. I mean, it's been a variety of people I run into have asked.
Is that actually city-owned property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who has been doing the funding the last 5 years?
Yeah, it's been Stewart, Lennon, Gove, Byrne, Wiley, Dick Wall and Teresa George, and then the Watsons when they lived there. They've sold out to Barb Latham. So there's been what, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 property owners funding the work.
Gary, what is it that you're trying to accomplish today?
Sure, what I'm trying to, yes, well, I'm responding to Rachel coming to talk, so I'm trying to give
Okay.
you my fact-based understanding of how things occurred.
I'm just
but-
trying to figure out how Parks Board is involved in this.
You bet. Well,
Yeah.
so, but in response to your question, I guess I would recommend that the Parks Board and the city governance revisit the process by which the public interest of the park is served in trimming.
Or are you suggesting that that would mean that if trimming was allowed in some agreeable parts of the park, the city would pay for that expense of taking care of it?
No,
No,
we're not concerned about the finances.
So, okay, so let me just clarify. I think what the group is asking in that area, from what I got from our talk that day, when they asked to meet with me, is they would like the Parks Department to put in an application for vegetation management for the park, because it
That's
is a park, and they will fund it.
okay.
They just don't want to upset their neighbors. They don't want to say, go to Ben Veling, start all of a sudden after 5 years when they've been staying on that east side, all of a sudden go to the west side, but it's the city who put in an application, because technically we're a city, we would still have to put in an application and get approval. But it wouldn't come out of the park's budget.
Is
Okay.
it,
Thank you.
Yeah, does that make sense?
is the aim to trim more than what is allowed in the vegetation management?
Not at all.
No, it's just to be I just don't think they as neighbors want to cross that bridge.
Yeah, the
It
budget,
needs to be trimmed on that side, and if you go up there, it's obvious that one side is trimmed and one isn't, and I think it looks off, personally. That's a personal opinion, I think it looks off, it's
Could
obvious.
you not
You're
take
talking
care of
about
that
the-
naturally, though, like next year you'd say, okay, let's do this part?
so the vegetation management plan allows for 10% per year of that whole area to be trimmed. That's the law, no problem. But we have a political side agreement among neighbors just to satisfy the interests of the two neighbors down there in the corner, saying, okay, we won't ask to trim the west side of the park so that we don't violate the neighbors' emotions, feelings, right? Now, I think there's a legal question here, because the policy of the city does provide for comment by neighbors, comment. The policy doesn't say a neighbor can hold up the whole show.
And I personally think sorry, I didn't mean to
That's
interrupt you.
fine.
If this group wanted to override it, you probably could. If you wanted to trim the west side, there is stuff and they could. It's
Can you
a,
point out where the west side is? I
it
guess
would
I-
be, so if you walk up there, they're trimming over here, right, about,
Yes,
and then none of this has been touched.
the
correct?
FEMA, wait, that's essentially true. The
Yeah.
FEMA drain now comes in here, right?
Yeah.
So some of this isn't here, so it's really this area that is now of concern. We're kind of trimming this part, I think. So we do come down here a little ways in a triangle because the FEMA drain runs through here. But it is that you're right on, Rachel, that it's this side, and I think this area down here is more of concern.
So they're on.
Because this is the part that really blocks the view.
Yeah, so
Wait.
you're hugging
Yeah.
that property line, and I think this group of neighbors who are funding it don't wanna cross that bridge,
We have an agreement. We don't want to violate the
Yeah.
agreement.
so.
But we could, if we thought it would be right and fair to do some trimming on the west side.
Yeah, and
And
I,
the new house that's gone,
Yeah.
excuse me, just one sec, the new house that's gone up, going
Right.
up. They have no issues with any of this,
They're totally supportive.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're just asking the city to get more involved in trying to trim some of those trees, because those houses are the ones past your mother-in-law's house, you know, on East Bluff, yeah, so
Right.
that's where they sit, so they kind of
That's
align
right.
that.
Gary,
Yeah.
when's the last time someone spoke to the neighbors?
It's probably, well, I've talked to, Carol Gove has talked to Mike Van Lockren
Okay,
in the last year. And I think Van Lockren is generally okay with it. I think his concern is Sandra Thompson next door.
okay.
And no one's talked to Sandra Thompson for probably 3 years.
But you're not asking to trim anything on her property, right?
No, yeah, I think it'd be great. I mean, I think that, if there could be a conversation with her, like her late husband agreed to, that would be great. That may be too ambitious. That may not be practical.
And it wouldn't be
If
something
that
the
could be
city would
accomplished,
do.
great, but if it can't be, and it might be too ambitious. If it can't be, then Rachel said it just right. If the park has an interest in a better view, then the park could put in a request to do the trimming on the west side of the city property in the interest of the park.
Right,
But the
and that's
park's on the
city
east side.
property, so there's no reason the city could not do
Yeah.
that, right?
Personally, I believe if we're trimming part of the park, it doesn't necessarily make sense to not do the entire
Right.
portion. To trim strategically and yearly 10% for whatever they're doing on the east side and then ignore the west, to me is not healthy. That's not keeping the park space
And it's city
Healthy.
property that we're talking about, it's not private property.
correct.
So they've had a pretty nice situation
Correct.
that they have these nice trees, but they don't really own the trees.
And it could simply be a miscommunication of something that happened 6 years ago that was never rectified with this family.
Mhm.
You know, they may have gotten that mailing or read that and then nothing was ever healed between the city and that family. It could be something that simple. And again, we're not asking to trim on public property.
Right.
I'm sorry, I don't want to be dense.
No,
but
that's okay.
why could the west part not be trimmed as part of your 10%?
It could, legally, it can be.
Okay,
Legally, it totally can be. The problem is that when this communication went out and the neighbors said, they're gonna trim everything in the area, and we met and talked, they were agitated. And so in a state of emotional conflict, and frankly, a state of some confusion, I think, we made an agreement just to move things along, to say, okay, half a loaf here. We'll trim in the east, we won't trim in the west. Can everyone live with that? And so the meeting ended peacefully. But it was a side political deal just so that the whole thing wouldn't shut down.
so on that west part, are there views involved or are there houses kind of in the way?
On the west side, there are not houses in the way. I think Rachel's pointing at the area of concern. What Rachel's pointing to right now is city property. And it is property where there is a great thicket of trees that obscure the view. And legally, the city, any approved vegetation management plan by a private interest or the city interest could trim there. And so that is what we would recommend take place.
So at one time, because I've lived here longer than you have, there was actually where the spillway kind of went in and so on. We actually had a trail that we could go from Pine Street all the way down to 119. And that's kind of represented by that red line there, right? It kind of was around that area.
It's near that area. You
Yeah.
can, I think I can almost
Yeah,
see it. Yeah, you can kind of see a path, can't you?
yeah.
I think,
It kind of came off of Pine Street, actually.
yeah, and it kind of comes up right through there.
Right,
I believe that's right.
yeah.
And to your point, that is city property that is currently not being trimmed.
So it would make more sense to me if we wanted to eventually develop that as a trail, and I don't know if it would get used, if it, more discussion on that.
Mhm.
But, so that we would have a reason to trim on that west side. I don't really agree with Rachel totally that, we just trim it for the sake of trimming it because it's part of a city park. It'd be like trimming Olive Kiwanis, for example, which we definitely don't do. We trim the parts like where there's, it needs to be trimmed on the disc golf cart course and that kind of thing. We don't,
We trim the observation deck.
sorry.
We we wouldn't let the observation deck be overgrown due to the view. To me, it's the same as the observation deck. We wouldn't allow that in the perfect world to get
But the
overgrown.
only park space that's developed is just that little tiny area and I don't know, does it slope off pretty fast after that? I mean.
Yeah.
Well, I
This
think
would
the park-
become like a linear park where we could,
Yeah, I think the park, the park is not one thing. I think it's a segment of things. So you have a segment of the park, which is a mode area with a picnic table. That certainly is part of the park. But I think arguably the park is more than that little postage stamp. I think the park is the broader natural area. And all that the natural area provides, which is trail, view, habitat, plants and trees. And so, I think that a holistic view of what the park is and should be and can be is a good way to go.
I think the other thing to consider is that we're trying to, I know you're working with Harbor Inc. and Trails Council trying to, extend the bike trail to the spillway, which will become bike accessible instead of having to carry your bike up and down the steps when you get there, which might have some impact on, how the park could be used.
Good point, those
Potentially.
trees might have to come out.
Yeah,
Anyway.
first off,
The white might have to come out,
Those trees might
yeah.
have to be trimmed to come out
For the
anyway, if
bridge,
that's,
yeah.
I'd have to ask Benchmark.
So the first thing to do would be what you suggest is apply for a permit with the city.
Yeah, and we can discuss this further. We don't have to
Yeah.
decide anything today. If the board's looking for a recommendation, it would be to visit the park space and take a look. I don't think this is something that has to happen tonight or even in December,
Mhm.
but take a look. It's simply something that's happening already and they're not asking us to fund it. They're saying, how can we spread this to create a better view? So I think it's worth acknowledging and taking a look at if this neighborhood's willing to fund it and they're looking to, do that area.
Totally agree with that, and I think you're only talking no more than 10%
Yeah,
here, so we're not like
Yeah.
chopping down every single tree on the west side.
that's
So
right.
I think it's really worth considering because it would make that park more useful. I think for not just neighbors, but for the city itself.
And aesthetically, it does look unbalanced, so to say.
I personally think it does. I'm not an expert on.
I agree, it's one tree
Or
stretch
anything, yeah.
is very, for
Yeah.
as much as a wooded area can be, is very manicured, and the other side is just wild and overgrown.
But I see what you're saying as well, that it's not something that necessarily needs to be done. If they're asking to come out of the parks budget, this would be a totally different conversation.
Yeah, and I guess I don't think it's any skin off our back to support this or anything
Yeah.
like that. I just am curious. So it's sort of a keep the peace with the neighbors is the reason that you're here today.
Yeah, yes, I think what what changes now, why is it different tonight than it was a year ago? I think the reason is that Rachel in her role has correctly observed that the picnic area of the park is not serving the community as it should, right? That's what's different. And so how do we change the process to get to a place where the park is being served better? Well, I think the answer to that is, as Rachel said it well, I think there is a public interest now that is that is vested in the park program. And the park program could also be an advocate or a permittee to say, we have a goal and it's to have a view, so we're also going to get involved. And then the process, I think the city probably should talk about what is the process then for getting neighbor comment. That could be done de novo, you could say but you have a comment. And so in terms of the Thompson home, it doesn't have to be, well, we hear you had a problem. What's your problem? It could be, here's what the park program would like to do. All neighbors, please comment.
Yeah, and I've got to think about this. I'm on tree board too, and I think we don't need to go through permitting to remove trees on city property.
My question is, since you're on tree board, you'll know the answer to this. Oh, I think, the 10%, is that per parcel or is that per, would it be 10% on the east side and 10% on the west, or is it 10%?
Not defined.
It's not defined. So here's the flip side of this request. So here's the flip side of this request. If Parks puts in the application, we're putting it in for the entire parcel. So it may be broken up into a couple percent here and a couple percent there, which meaning it won't be 10% on the east side. Parks will then control that application and where things, and the group would obviously have to be okay with that.
And then I guess
Well,
we
sure.
would be involved
Ultimately,
in
it's up to that
the
feeling, but
shaking the trees, and this would open up the view from our little park up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the shaking the trees part was only on the private property where we went that.
Okay.
so
Because
bad.
we were, when things were working so well, we were trimming not only here, but also here and also here. That was working really well, but this is private property.
So Gary, can you just point out again where the disputed area is that you're asking for our
Bottom left
involvement?
corner.
Yeah, the disputed area is this area in here, so the disputed city property area would be kind of a strip that runs right along here.
Okay.
So can I ask a question on the public comment part? Do we, for trees that are city owned, do we need public comment to
So
trim our own trees?
well, that's probably a good question for Deanna.
Yeah,
Do we?
we don't strictly need it, but we might
Yeah.
do it just
So-
out of courtesy.
Right, so if the Parks Board is interested with continuing this process, we would go to Victor and the tree board and get like an absolute timeline and what the best practice is, especially considering we privately funded to move forward.
He has, just to address your point, Dick, he has intricate, like 20-page reports on how he got to his 10%. So let's see, what would the next step be then?
So,
Maybe go to tree board and get them on board?
well, the
I don't know.
Parks Department, so I'll speak to we would like some sort of guidance for me tonight for staff on whether we want to move forward. And moving forward, I would ask Victor about if Parks puts in the application, it goes to tree board, or how exactly that. Or I have to go to tree board first, what exactly would work? I just want to know if we want to move forward with this as a Parks Department.
So our
personally
vote-
would, yes, I
Hmm.
think maybe it starts with Victor, his guidance as to the next step, whether it be tree board or how that might
Remember.
work. And then
Do we want to
can
do
all
a
come
public
back together.
meeting? So I guess I would like to provide guidance that we would focus on the function of the park as opposed to neighbor views and things like that, right?
Okay, so I will work on getting those details and I'll bring it to, like I said, there's no huge rush on this. It's been like this for, I think we can all live. It doesn't happen next month.
Well, and it doesn't have to all be in one year, you know, like
Right.
if we do want to consider like running a trail through there and that will need more trees to come out.
Yeah, and
That
like,
would be outside of the 10%, I would think.
and like we said with the wheelway may take out 10% of that. Anyway, so those are all things we'll have to discuss. And I'll look at the benchmark images and talk to Victor and things like that, but we can move ahead and it might help the relationship with those neighbors if it is a slower process. You know, if we say it's not gonna be 10% in this area, you know, we're gonna do
Right.
a couple percent here, so. Yeah, I think there's a nice way we can go about this and move forward.
And so do you need like a motion or anything, or should we just say our
I don't think I need a
show
motion,
of
'cause we're still
hands
gathering.
in agreement with moving forward and having Rachel investigate?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
You bet.
Appreciate you.
We do have an opening on tree board if you're interested.
Steve used to be on, you know, to run.
Okay, well, again, thank you all and
When we resolve all this, party's at your house.
great, we can do that. Hopefully it'll have a great view. See you all.
Bye. All right.
Next up, skate park entrance fee elimination.
So I would like to, and this has not gone to council yet, let me clarify, it's just something I typed up for Victor. The Parks Department, myself, would like permission from the Parks Board to take to council on Monday that we eliminate the usage fee for the skate park. Nathan Jacks is no longer with the Parks Department. He has resigned. It was a mutual passing that we agreed the skate park does not need to be manned in that way. We had already talked about reducing seasonal staff. It was just a nice agreement, you know, it just kind of worked. The skate park is completed. There's no reason for staff to be all the time. The fence is down. He's still gonna volunteer, be an advocate, do the Halloween event, things like that, and volunteering in partnership with the Parks Department. So everyone wins. A couple reasons that I highlighted is the majority of youth sports are organized and pay to play. As children age, organized sports become more costly and some are not making teams due to tryouts. Free public skate parks allow for all levels and abilities to be free. The skate park, again, is no longer gonna be staffed. With the reduction of staff, there'll be no one there to take payment. The skate park no longer has a fence around the perimeter. It's kind of a come and go as you please atmosphere. If we were to charge only non-city residents, it's not enforceable. There's not gonna be staff there to enforce it. The usage fee revenue will not be greater than the cost of paying staff to take the payments. It's not gonna outweigh each other. And the idea of the concrete skate park is to save on costs with limiting staff hours and little to no maintenance. So if we staff it all the time, we kind of just took away not why we did the project, but a big part of it. I mean, let's be honest, it's budget reasons, there's little maintenance with it.
Do we need to have somebody like blow leaves out of it and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
so DPW will
every
do
day?
some basic maintenance. It has to be sealed once a year. DPW, I can do that with rollers. That's pretty basic. But in general, I mean, those skate parks, they're just come and go. There's gonna be rule signs posted. Police will have, you know, a presence if we run into anything. It's just like anything else, like the beach. You know, we all know that people go down to the beach after sunset. We know that people do things at the beach they're not supposed to do, and when we get complaints, the police go down there. And that's how this should be as well.
Just a little more background too.
Yeah.
Rachel had said that, just a rough survey of other skate parks in Michigan, we're the only one that charges right now.
Yeah, there's one indoor one in Kalamazoo that I know of that charges, but it's indoor, so it's all year round, there's concessions, but 99% of skate parks that you go to are free come as you go. That's kind of just implied, and then there's no liability because you have to skate at your own risk.
I was gonna ask the question about liability. You know, what, how does the city cover that? Is it just part of our umbrella plan,
Mhm.
whatever?
Yeah, umbrella plan. So before we had like a special waiver system where kids or
Right.
individuals came and they signed a waiver and they had helmets and all of that because it was fenced in because the ramps were the way they were. But a concrete skate park, you reduce that. They're actually safer
Yes.
than what was there. People think of concrete and they think, oh, but it's actually a much safer structure than what was there.
Right.
So,
So we're not
Rachel, was
concerned
that-
about any legal issues then, if some kid falls and breaks their forearm or whatever, that's kind of on them.
So we'll,
Unfortunately.
we'll count on they just use their cell phone to call somebody.
correct, yep, and it says right on there, call 911 if there's an emergency.
Will there be like a first aid kit? or-
Yeah, so the plan without staff would be, I'd like to still come up with some sort of rental plan, whether it's like a locker system or however we'll do that. Just because I think it is important for people who are visiting or who've never skated before, who don't own the stuff and aren't sure, have that.
Right.
But that can be thought out in time. But we've talked about having a first aid kit in that hallway. We can put a door between, when you walk in the skate park, there's a hallway with the restrooms. And then there's a separate room where they took payment and all that. There would be a door there that locks. So the restrooms can still be opened. And then there can be a first aid kit on the wall there if something were to happen that was minor. And then have the rule signs, inside the building and then a couple places outside the building.
So what about the rentals? You know, I know we used to rent skates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
we don't rent anything
They
in the old
rented
skate park now?
scooters and helmets and things like that. It wasn't overly popular, but it was something that was there and it is something people are used to and it was used. So like I said, I would like to think we have all winter to think of a system for that, whether it's lockers with codes where people can get into, something like that. Haven't quite nailed out what it is, but I would like to keep that an option if we can. So.
I think Rachel did also said that you're looking into like security cameras where they can watch from the police station if there's anything.
Lucas and I have talked about cameras or
Yeah.
fake cameras or signage or something like that. Again, we're just gonna have to see what happens with the park, and see what kind of usage. I mean, it's already in high use. Most people, I'm a firm believer that most people that tag skate parks or tag parks in general are not the ones using the park properly. Like a skater, I refuse to believe is the one tagging the skate park. It's usually someone else who just wants to spray paint something, I don't think the people who are using the skate park the way it's intended are gonna disrespect the property that way.
What about capacity issues? As this becomes better known, is there a capacity issue ever?
Good question.
What about a donation?
Yep, oh, good, I'm glad you brought that up. I think someone brought that up in our last night, donation box would be in the building somewhere, a locked donation box.
Great.
Yep,
And there's a sign being developed.
yeah, I have the rule sign actually. There are a couple edits that need to be made on it. Hour sunrise to sunset, bicycles will be allowed, but it'll be bicycles with no metal pegs. And then it's gonna say no motorized equipment. That'll be like a separate line. Those are the two changes that need to be made.
Rachel, so now it says bicycles and motorized equipment are not permitted. So are bicycles permitted?
Yes, and Evergreen actually is the one who said that's so hard to enforce.
That's confusing.
So it'll change to bicycles with, metal peg bikes are not allowed, and then no motorized equipment. It'll be two separate lines, so it'll be more
Good.
clear.
What is tagging?
Tagging graffiti, like tagging something like a gang sign or whatever kids come
Like
up
what they've
with.
been doing in the tunnel.
Yeah. And Sterling Heights has an evergreen park, and these are actually their rules almost verbatim. A couple of them are different. Outside obstacles, I just explained today before the meeting, are like someone can't bring in their own ramp. You can't bring in their own, post to shred on. I don't know what they say. But
Rails.
This is a dumb
rails or
question, but
whatever.
everybody can go in any direction, right? It's not
Correct,
like,
yeah.
okay.
yeah, so it looks like a free for all to us because we don't skate.
does.
Believe me, I was up there Saturday, Sunday. It looks like a free for all. but they know what they're doing.
Are helmets required?
Mhm. Strongly recommended though,
Good.
per the sign.
And you said no lighting,
So there's some security lighting up there. We have the old lights.
just by the building.
Yep, my plan as of right now is not to just install them in the spring right away and kind of see how the usage is. If we do install them, I foresee them closer to the pickleball lights where they go off and on by themselves. The ones right now at the skate park, well, the old ones, you had a switch. And those are kind of like stadium, like very intense lighting. It's like you're at a football game. I don't foresee the need for that.
You do motion sensor lighting?
Yeah, that's a good idea on the buildings, and that'll be something for deterrent for, you know, late night users and things like that. So, and those are things in the spring and even throughout the winter when it's nice and people are up there, then we'll see the usage. That's why the rule sign, I try to leave, it's like sunrise to sunset, like kind of vague, because we just don't know. And when I put 10 p.m., it used to be over till 10 p.m. I don't want to say that anymore.
Where is the rules gonna be, where's the signage?
In the hallway, 2 places on the building, and then we're gonna try and find a place on the other, anywhere someone technically could enter. So on the perimeter of the skate park somewhere.
I think it should be on the outside.
Yeah, so there'll be 2 on the outside of the building. on
And the
both
one on the
sides.
outside, I would make bigger.
Yeah, those will be really massive. These are 24 by 24. And then, so those will be big on the outside, a smaller one inside the building, and then, like I said, one freestanding one on the perimeter. The insurance, when I reached out to the insurance company, they said basically try and hit every angle you would enter it from. And,
It's hard, one thing that I think could end up being an issue is parking,
yeah.
like especially during like baseball season.
Mhm.
People are gonna wanna park at Bay Bluffs too, I'm sure.
They
and
were this afternoon.
They're gonna probably have issues. So I guess they just park in the streets and the neighborhoods if,
We can add that to the rule sign as well, like, I'd rather add too much to the rule sign and then adjust, because we're getting some cars, the metal ones, they're not like the beach ones that are like the wayfinding ones. I want to leave these open for adjustments if needed.
do we have like any ideas for overflow parking, like maybe down at the football stadium?
It could be the football stadium, it could be the other side, a lot of people don't know that other little parking lot is there on the little side of the Little League fields. Yeah, we could leave that, because people are gonna park on, now that that fence is gone, on every side they
I
can.
can
There's a lot
just
of
see
different
people on
parking by the
Pine
soccer
Street not
field.
being thrilled about having people parking.
Yeah, but the police can't enforce anything and I can't enforce if there's not sign. You know, you go up there, and where's that posted? And hear it now.
There's
so-
parking by soccer fields, there's a
Mhm.
lot of parking there,
Yeah, true.
it's across the road.
Another thing Rachel and I talked about is whether we should just have a little soft opening on Saturday at noon and bring in a big pile of pizzas. Just for fun, some balloons, put it on social media.
So I spoke to Nate about that this afternoon. And he was all for it if we want to do it. He feels it was more busy that opening weekend, this last weekend, than it will be probably this following weekend. He said to just let him know, and he would
I
be
think it's
there.
supposed to be nice.
But yeah, it's supposed to be like 42, I think. So,
We have money in our budget.
oh yeah, the pizzas, if you want to do it.
Do you think he'd want to be there and help with it or?
Yeah, I'm sure he will. Yeah. Would your family be available?
Me,
Yeah,
yeah,
I definitely want to do a post. So the signs, we got temporary signs that are laminated. That'll go up tomorrow. So once those are up, then we can officially do a post that it's open. I was hesitant to like actually invite people until those
With
were
no
up.
rules,
Yeah, until the rules were up.
I think it'll be busy because word is spreading that it's open.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah,
You
they
know.
already know.
Yeah. People who don't skate have come up to me and said, I saw.
Just
people
give me a
skating
heads
today,"
up.
you know.
Yeah.
So the
Quite
word's
visible,
spreading.
actually, when you're coming down.
How many pizzas do you think?
This is the age-old question, isn't it?
I know.
10? What do you think?
I would think 10 would be plenty. 5 would probably be plenty.
Well, do you know of any like big tournaments or any things with the kids?
No, just I know there's a large kind of group leaving to go out west, but. No, other than that,
Well, I can be there to
and
help.
people who leave early for Thanksgiving break, a lot of people take Monday and Tuesday off school,
Right.
so.
I don't know why
And
we
this-
really need
this
to do it
Saturday.
this week.
This-
It's
yeah.
short notice. Such short notice, I don't know why we would want
What'd you
to
say?
do that.
I think it's worth celebrating, like, that it's open, even if not a ton of people show up, I think having people there and encouraging
We can call
anyone
it
to
just
stop
a
on.
little welcome back pizza party.
Yeah,
And then we're gonna have a bigger deal like in May where we'll have a dedication and.
Yeah, it might be worth doing just to explain to individuals the rules
Yeah.
and the concept of it. And then we will be doing something in the spring, considering they did it in the fall. And I have had some phone calls like, are you doing a ribbon cut? Like Harbor Light reached out today. They're like, are you doing ribbon cutting? I'm like, well,
Yeah,
it's
like
November, so no.
worded as like a pop-up kinda.
Yeah, good idea.
Make
How are you
sure-
gonna get the word out? Cause the harbor's too late for the Harbor Light. No.
We
So how
have
you
a
gonna-
pretty big following on that skate park page on Facebook.
Okay.
That
You could post it on the city.
yeah,
Facebook.
in the city page, parks page, that, so there's the parks page and there's a separate skate park
Okay,
page, and that has quite the following, the group of skaters.
Do you think Saturday at noon is good?
Rachel, is there any way to identify the beginner's bowl from the presentation? There was a indication that there was a part in kind of the southeast section that was for beginners.
Yeah, it's now the southwest section due to
Okay.
utility line, but it is
Alright.
there.
Is there any way a sign could go there? Because tonight, when I was looking before the meeting, there was two mothers with two little kids. One had a bicycle, one had a scooter, but you know, it was too busy for them to go onto the thing. But if there was an indication that this is a beginner's ramp.
So the problem with indicating that is not only beginners are gonna go into it. Like advanced skateboarders will use it, and you're insinuating it's safe for people that are new. And it's
Yeah.
not, is the problem, so that would alone create a liability. But I can ask Evergreen, like, cause I do remember Ben saying that, I can ask him
No,
if
it's
the,
it's on the west.
yeah, cause I think
southwest.
the paint lines mean something as well.
Yeah, why
The
don't you ask them
different,
about
yeah,
that? I
so
would
I'll
be
ask that
curious.
too, yeah.
Do we have any extra benches we could just move up there for the short term or not worth it for however much time it's still gonna be used?
I'll think about it. I don't know if it's a waste. I mean, if there's not snow on the ground, people are gonna be up there.
We
Absolutely.
could take some of the Marina Park ones up there. Sure, look, this will be thrilled.
But I do need a vote though on taking it to council to eliminate
Yeah.
the fee, if we wanna go that way.
Okay, do you just wanna show of hands or you wanna,
Let's do a
motion?
roll call.
Okay,
Why not?
let's make a motion, that we eliminate, fees at the skateboard park. Do we have a second?
I second.
So, I agree.
Okay, so Dixie, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Perfect.
Are you gonna present to council then at the next meeting, Rachel?
No, I'll be there, but if there has, I mean, I might.
Okay, and then anything else we need to, you'll handle social media and all that
Mhm.
for Saturday
Yep.
and show of hands, who maybe could be there to help hand out pizza.
Yeah, I know Nate will be there. I'll be there. I was gonna take the girls there anyway, so they'll be in that beginner's bowl.
Yeah. Okay, I think it'll be fun. Okay, should we move on to boardwalk fundraising?
Yeah.
An update on that?
So we have the event at the pier. We did change it to December 15th, the week before. And Scott has been working tirelessly on a silent auction, so we have some pretty great items for that. It's the same as last year, $100 a ticket, $50 goes towards the boardwalk. We do have a $25,000 match from the Stevens. So we'll get the word out for that. And,
Did you bring the invitations? in?
oh no, but they're on my desk. Hold on, I'll grab it. Carry on.
We met with Kristen at the pier, and you know how at Christmas time they have the paper origami cranes hanging from the ceiling, so that's gonna be a theme. And we're gonna have a little origami ornament for everybody that comes. Yep, and it's gonna be used like in the tables. We're doing kind of a strolling dinner thing where it's not just gonna be on one table. We're gonna have like a mashed potato bar in a martini glass station and some other stuff. There's gonna be a disc jockey and Leslie Heath Great. Yep,
Dance floor, will you have a dance floor again?
I don't know if Rachel, are they bringing in a hard dance floor?
And I'll have to ask her. You're invited. You're invited.
Thank you.
The silent,
You're invited too.
the silent auction
Great.
will be in the Wheelhouse Lounge
You're
with the
invited.
clipboards on the bar. And we said that we would have 20 clipboards. So far, I have 12 donated, but if anybody has any contacts, you know, because I've been primarily working on the local,
I'm sure I've got things I can.
you know, the
donate.
local merchants,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
because I think it's good
Alright.
exposure for their business. And we have about $3,000 at retail right now. And I haven't really gone after any, thinking about bigger, you know, higher price things, because I think mostly locals will attend. So I want to make sure there's something that's obtainable for, you know, local people to buy something for $50 or something. It's better than everything being $1,000 or more.
Got a really great menu planned. They were really nice working with us.
And these have been sent out already, the
Yes.
invitations to,
Anyone who purchased a step and higher. So $1,000 and higher. And anyone else I run into.
And then will we post this on social media, put it in the paper?
Yep. Yep, it'll go in the paper and the only guidance I'm really looking for is if we think it's best to get in the paper. I don't want it to be clouded by Thanksgiving. So I was thinking the week after, we still have some time, kind of get through the holiday and then push. It's just everyone's already so busy.
I agree with that.
I think people have seen it on social media. They've seen it in the chamber, so they can jot it down as like a save the date, but a final reminder after the holidays.
people are posting the flyers already. It's up in the outfitter
Yeah,
on the street, and it's at Pearson's already. It's at Running Water.
Right?
But it, you know, anybody can help with donations, because a lot of the shop owners or the people in charge aren't necessarily around this last few weeks. So
Yeah.
I've been going back to places.
I know I call Scott at the Lyric, we've had fun parties like where he's donated a theater, movie of your choice for your closest friends, yeah. Anything else on that, Rachel? Okay. Let's see, director's report. Oh, public comment on anything. Rachel.
Somebody on Zoom now.
Sorry,
Is somebody on Zoom?
yeah.
did you have her hand raised?
No,
No, okay, perfect.
Now,
The hand
we'll go
just
back.
went up.
Yeah.
oh. Go ahead, Miranda.
Thanks, Rachel. I just had a question, and of course, a lot of people are asking me. What is the projected, how much is the boardwalk? Are they projecting $500,000 for the east portion of it?
I believe it's 450,000. So just, yeah, just short.
Okay, I guess the question I'm asking and that people are asking me, why are we replacing it? It's in such a small area. The boardwalk comes off, out at the same place up on the bluff, and for what, less than a block down on 3rd Street, really nobody accessed, if you know that part of the boardwalk, nobody ever used that side anyway. So why is close to $500,000 as a fundraiser being done? If that boardwalk is for some reason not built, what happens to that property and the deeds or whatever to the property if that boardwalk would not be built?
Yeah, so that's a fair question, and it's one that some of us have asked ourselves. Ultimately, it's a council decision, and that's the design they had was for the western and the eastern, and they put park staff and the parks board in charge of it, so it's our duty to follow what council said, which is to fundraise for it. If for any reason it doesn't get built, it would be demolished and the city then, and don't quote me, this is really a Victor or council question, but I believe then the city would not own the property any longer, the deeds.
It's an easement.
Yeah, it's an easement,
They would
sorry.
lose the easement.
Yeah, we would lose the easement. So if it was taken down and we decided not to build it, we would lose the easement to the property.
So then
Yeah.
basically, and this is what's being said to me, people are donating almost $500,000 to build a boardwalk that is superfluous to the existing boardwalk. It's not going to be used. We didn't use the other one to basically let the city continue to have jurisdiction over that, as opposed to going back to having the easement or the property owners then have jurisdiction over it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It truly is superfluous. The last one was, whether, we've built several houses, and whether it's in the plans or not, you can take anything in or out of plans. If you're over budget, you can always say, we're not going to build that.
Yeah, no, that's one way to look at it. Again, though, it's not the Parks Department's decision, not the council decision.
Okay.
And a couple things too. I think there are a number of people that donated to the first one that feel they want to respect the original historic configuration of the boardwalk.
That's true. We have had some original donors that would like to see the
And the
fully
idea
completed
is that
project.
if there's an appetite among these people and they want to pay for it and it's not city funds, it's almost become an attraction in its own right. So it's functional. Yes, you're right, just up and down. How many ways up and down do we need? But we used it a lot, and Jamie's over here saying she does.
The east, why would you use the east side? Nobody goes down that far to get up to the top. I mean, most people, it's way past the business district. Nobody used it, the residents.
I guess I would say it's walkers, people that are out.
Well, I'm a
walking.
walker. I'm on it. I'm telling you, Dana, I'm on that thing 3 times a day. I've been on it my whole life. And everybody who's been raised here like I have all said.
Well, and you don't
we
have
don't
to
care.
donate. You don't have to donate it to it, nor do any of the people that, you're
I guess
talking
people
to.
are not aware of the fact that that does return to the jurisdiction of the city. And if it does, and if it's not purchased, $500,000 is a lot of money for people. I'm sure there's capital improvements all over this town.
But it's not city money though. I guess that's just one thing that we want to
That's the
stress.
point. I guess people don't realize probably. I think the underlying issue is to get that. It's $500,000 going towards something that's not necessary, and it gives.
We've had this discussion too, Miranda, trust me, and I think there is a plan that after we have the fundraiser, and I hope you come to it, and
No,
yes,
we're not coming because we're not donating to something that is just going to give the city. It's basically purchasing.
Okay.
That's all. No, there's a lot of people.
It's
that
a
are
fun,
separate
it's
the
a
city.
fun community party. I guess that's also how we're looking at it. But
Yeah.
and if you could let me finish, we are planning to have a discussion at that point, and if it does seem at some point like we're not going to get enough funds for it, then we go back to council and ask them if they, want to think differently about it.
The Parks Board
Well,
has discussed that.
I hope you do well, truly. I mean, if you can pull in $500,000, use it towards something that's really needed and necessary in this town instead of raising taxes and not putting up a boardwalk that nobody's going to go on. Like I said, I think the word superfluous, it's very expensive, and it also gives the city, then they get to keep ownership, jurisdiction, and rights over that. And if they don't, it goes back to the owners. And I think that's what people are very concerned about, that it's a little smoke and mirrors perhaps. I'm not saying you're doing it.
Well, it's a TBD thing, so stay tuned.
Yeah, like I
So,
said, for
thanks for your time.
$500,000, use the money towards something that really needs to be done in the city or needs to be somewhere and not raise the taxpayers, you know, and instead of making the taxpayers pay for something. So
Well, they're not paying for it.
you're missing the
And-
point. Don't make the taxpayers pay for something down the road when you put up a $500,000 boardwalk that is not necessary. I'm just saying that,
Okay.
that the funds could be used for something I think more useful. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks for your point. Thank you.
And I do say moving forward, if we do hear those comments of community, because we will. I mean, ultimately, let's be honest, some of those are fair questions.
They are.
Those are truly for council. And that's where we should send them. Not because Parks doesn't want to have a conversation about that, but it's truly not Parks' decision.
I
We
think
did not
can
decide, yeah.
share background information.
Yeah, we can share background information and we could talk about the importance of why we want to do it and why council is doing, why we want to be a part of it. But ultimately, when it comes to fundraising, when it comes to the plans of the boardwalk, that's been council from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's not, you know, passing it off to them. That's simply saying that's where their comments will be heard and where decisions can truly be made. So.
Okay, let's move on, Rachel, Parks Director's report.
Okay. We will hear in December about both Michigan Department of Natural Resources. I typed this before I got my email yesterday. We should hear about the passport grant in the next few weeks. It's kind of what it seemed from the email. They were going to be doing the final scoring and sending out funding decisions. So we should hear back about that. The passport grant will take longer, I would assume. The county has agreed to the wheelway easement to extend the Little Traverse Wheelway. The city will partner with Harbor Inc. and Top of Michigan Trails to coordinate marketing and fundraising efforts. I'm pretty sure we went over this in the last meeting.
Yeah.
So we're gonna send out, along with Harbor Inc., some information, after Thanksgiving in regards to that. Dale Scott from Farming for Our Future will come speak at our December meeting about funding, and the process of creating a community garden. They're actually looking for funding opportunities. I guess they have it's a nice problem to have. They have some funds that they don't know exactly where to put them right now. So they're looking for projects. So I'm gonna send him kind of a layout of where we've talked about in Jean Jardines, Billway areas we've discussed, and he'll come with how that comes from idea and a CIP project to reality. We are working with Pro Image to create a donor recognition for the western portion of the boardwalk. See attached image. I only ask that if you do have comments in regards to this, please just email me or stop in. I don't think we need to go through it tonight.
Yep.
And then what else is on here? So right now I'm interim DDA director, and Ice Fest, and it's still very early in the process, but we've discussed having a tent in Zorn Park, if we can get a tent company to put up a tent, which is crazy. Did we have a tent at that first Winterfest? We did, right? From Taylor Rental outside the building. I have a picture of it with a band.
Yeah.
So,
We didn't have a band. It was really, really cool.
but we did have a
We
tent.
did have a tent.
Okay, so I called to the rental and they say now they don't do winter tents, which I find strange because that was like in the middle of December, January we did that.
Was it a big tent
Anywho.
or was it a canopy?
It was
size.
It was a big size. It had
It was
sides
large.
and everything. and We had heaters in it. I
Yeah,
remember.
BBW had to put it in, I
Yeah,
remember.
so, they're talking about doing a tent in Zorn Park and kind of allowing for a warming area and also another avenue for food. Cause, it's either, go to a restaurant, some of them are closed in the afternoons. Some you can't get into, some if you have multiple children, you just don't want to deal with going into a restaurant and be like, so I kind of, sorry guys, volunteered that maybe the Parks Board might be interested in doing hot dogs in a tent if they can't find another organization that would be willing. It is in Zorn Park, so it is a park, so it makes sense that we would partner on something. I just want to know if anyone remotely would be on board, because if not, I'll stop the discussion now.
I think it's
Um,
nice to partner with other boards.
Yeah, but I think they're trying to bring life into Ice Fest and have it be a little less passive.
Well, they came to the right people.
So,
So how
uh,
about for our next meeting, we all try and bring ideas, like on fun things that we could do there. I don't know if it'd be a craft or games or, you know.
yeah, and I don't know how big the tent will be. I think it's more just to keep people, warm and kind of like a spot where they can stay. So you're not just walking down Main Street freezing and leaving, because you do want people to hang around town for a little longer and have other things for people to do.
Like ice carvings were gonna be scattered around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so they're not gonna just be in one part of it.
Yep, no, they'll still do the ice carvings, they'll still have some games, I think it's just more bringing the park to life, a lot of it, Ice Fest is one of those things where it's either beautiful weather and the ice sculptures melt like last year, or it's, 10 below zero, and there's 2 feet of snow, and then it's hard for people to walk around, and there's really no middle ground. So,
What will be the date?
it's February, you had to
Second
ask for
Saturday.
that, did you? It's February
Second Saturday.
8th and 9th.
That'd be 9th and 10th.
Yeah, so I'll bring more, not much happens on Sunday, it's mostly Friday night into Saturday day. So I'll bring more information as GDA works on it, and again, I just brought it up as a possibility to them, so I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, let's do it.
Park updates, we kind of already hit on this, the skate park is completed, we'll wait to hear on the grant. We're ordering the signage, we went over that, and we already went over what it looks like. And then volunteers to help cut back perennials at Marina Park.
This week, I think this is our last, maybe really good.
Yeah, I think we decided this week, which we know it's short notice, so we understand it's just gonna be like 60, so it makes sense to do it.
Is anybody interested in Thursday morning, let's say at 11?
Have little miles.
Oh,
You'd like pull stuff out of the ground.
yeah. Friday morning.
Friday morning works the best for me.
Okay, let's do it.
That's because only I can wear jeans, so like
10 or 11.
that's my jeans day.
Yeah, tree board at noon,
Sorry.
tree board at noon.
Oh,
I think it's
how about 10?
Yeah,
Let's say 10.
There you go.
I don't think it'll
Thanks,
take a
Jamie.
long time.
I don't think it will either. Well, if anyone would like to join us,
What day is it again?
this Friday,
This
10
Friday?
AM, yeah.
I don't even think it'll take an hour. We're just
I don't
gonna
even think it'll take an hour.
cut back perennials. Yep.
What time?
10 AM. And that's all I had.
Okay, and just a couple other things we've been talking about that I think we'll bring up at, at another meeting is Harbor View Park. There was discussion about maybe adding pickleball courts there.
Where was
And
that?
then-
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Harbor View Park, that's
Oh,
where the
okay, yeah.
pickleboard courts are right now.
Right.
And that led to discussions of, well, we hate to take up that whole nice park up there, if we wanted to do a pavilion or whatever. So I think, Rachel, were you gonna reach out to the schools to see if we could consider striping some of the tennis courts?
Right, that's a school decision. I can bring it up to them and see how they feel about it.
Yeah.
We can start there.
But
If we
it's
don't
nice,
wanna add
nice to
more,
partner
yeah.
schools and.
Yeah, so we can start there and see if they
Yeah.
were years ago, but they may be now, so. And then if they
Pickleball's
still
just getting
feel,
so,
and if they still feel the same way, then we discuss if we wanna add more courts possibly. It's in our CIP list now, so.
and
They
then,
do have 8 tennis courts.
Wonder how
behind the
often
school.
they're used, I mean, how busy they
Yeah.
are there.
Rachel's gonna check with Lucas
I
on
think
that.
they're pretty heavily used, whether all 8 are used at the same time, I can't answer. And I don't know if they do tournaments there, I don't know how the school utilizes them. And I don't know how lighting up for pickleball changes how they can use them for school events. I'm sure there are a lot of things
Yeah.
that,
Work out.
yeah, that I wouldn't
Yeah.
know without asking, so.
I think that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's adjourn at 6:50. Thank you. Everybody take some cookies.